Hello folks, welcome to your first lesson about testing. Testing is carried out whenever you design an IT product. For us it's databases. In the second year it will be websites, and you'll be testing those as well. It's a normal part of any project when you're dealing with IT. So whether this is for an exam or for a teacher set assessment, you'll be using the following slides to help you understand how to test correctly. So the resources that I'm sharing with you on Google Classroom are these ones. There's a worksheet called worksheet number 3 that's attached to Google Classroom, and I have also attached the template that we will use for testing. And for your information, a copy of the mark scheme as well. So when you do testing, it's basically to test if the product that you've produced, in our case a database, works correctly and works as we would expect it to. For paper A, or for a teacher set assessment, we'll be testing the table, testing that the validation and input masks that you've put in actually do work. So if this was the exam, you'd be expected to complete this activity in 20 minutes, which is quite challenging. They do give you a template to help you complete it, but it is a challenging task. Okay, so when we test for our database, our validation, we're going to use 3 different types of data. We're going to use normal data, erroneous data, and extreme data. These are 3 terms that you need to understand, so make sure you're making notes. Let's go through what each type of data actually means. Okay, so normal data, when you are completing the template that you'll be given looks something like this. Let me just push this on here. So the template will be given to you, it'll be blank. And at the top, it will tell you that if you're doing a normal test, you'll use the letter N in here. An erroneous test, you'll be using the letter R. And an extreme test, you'll be using the letter X. And that just indicates in here what kind of data you are using. So it's really important you understand the different data types. So first of all, normal data. So normal data is data that should be accepted into any validation rule if you've done that validation rule correctly. And here are some examples. Have a read of these. Restaurant database, date of reservation. You've set the rule as greater than or equals to today. We remember what this date function means. So normal data would be a date in that range. So today's date or a date in the future. And that should be accepted. You shouldn't get any error messages. Here's another one. In a stock database, in a price field, you'd normally expect a positive number. So one which is greater than 0. And that data should be accepted. It should be the right data type. So in this case, the data type for normal data would be currency. In this example, the data type for normal data would be a date. And the last one here, a surname field, when you've set the field size, so this would be a length check to 20 characters, normal data would be characters which are 20 or less. So this is normal data. If we now move on to have a look at what erroneous data is. So erroneous data is data which will create an error, therefore the name erroneous. We are expecting an error message to be generated. And you need to make sure that any erroneous data is the wrong type of data for that field. So if you're putting it into a date field, you would not put in a short date. So here's some examples. In a restaurant database, reservation field is validation rule greater than or equals to today, and the data type for that reservation field is a short date format. Erroneous data would be someone's name, or so that's sort of in the wrong data type and completely wrong, and an error message should be expected. Again, if I typed in next Thursday, it's the wrong data type and an error message should be expected. So that would be good erroneous data to use. Here's another example. Student database, presence check. So this is an is not null on their date of birth field. So good example of erroneous data would be no date entered, and we'd expect an error message in that case. Another example, a price field. If you added £2 in text, so that's the wrong data type, you should expect that to be rejected and an error message would appear. Okay, so those are good examples of erroneous data. The last type of data that we use is extreme data, and this is normally when we have range checks or length checks. So this data checks the boundaries of our validation rules, and we're testing the outside of the boundary. And with any extreme test, you should use the correct data type. The extreme test data should give you an error message. Here's an example. An age field validation rule is between 11 and 16. Extreme test would be 10, which is just below that rule, or 17, which is just slightly higher. So both of those bits of data, 10 and 17, are the correct data type, but they're sitting just outside the boundaries. Here's another one. This is a length check, so 6 characters in a product code. And a 7-character word would be then testing the extremes. So we've just gone beyond the boundary, and we would expect to see an error message. Another one, in the date field that only allows between those dates, you'd see that the extremes of that would be just before and just after the boundaries that we set up. That would be considered to be extreme data. It's the correct data type, but we would expect an error message. So I hope you've made lots of notes. Now, to start your activity, I'd like you to go to Google Classroom, find the worksheet called Worksheet 3, and if you could please complete the activity on page 2 and 3 of that worksheet, and then come and find the next video in our lesson. Good luck.